Hello and welcome to another Dairy Hollow Chinwag, brought to you by the Writers Colony at Dairy Hollow. So the Writers Colony at Dairy Hollow is a nonprofit for writers that exists in the little village of Eureka Springs in Arkansas. We have 2 buildings and 8 writing suites and offer residencies of any length. Our mission is to provide uninterrupted writing time to writers of all genres and all backgrounds. So today, our Chinwag is going to be with Zakiya Moore, a former resident of Oakland, California, who creates in artistic mediums such as dance, filmmaking, and writing. Zakiya Moore was a Writers Colony at Dairy Hollow scholarship recipient, and she completed her residency with us and got to stay in the Maya Angelou suite. Welcome so much, Zakiya.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course, I'm excited to get to talk to you. So to start us off, I gave a brief intro, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I am from Oakland, California, born and raised. Before I started back writing full time, I went to film school at Howard University, which was in Washington, D.C., and that had a very vibrant film community for a multifaceted artist such as myself, as you mentioned. I was a filmmaker, director, screenwriting and dancer at that time in my life. And it was really allowed me to stretch my ideas and experiment. So it really gave me that exposure being at Howard, what I consider my Black Renaissance. And it changed my perspective on how I write Black characters and how I was able to open my lens up in ways I wasn't before,
Yeah.
like softness in our people. I'm so used to seeing women and men being hard, being tough, like hard. So I was able to really explore softness and femininity and wealth in Black communities
Mm.
and duality between good and evil without relegating back to just stereotypes. So it really allowed me that openness and of being Black that I didn't
Yeah.
really experience in my writing before.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
yeah, I love solo trips. I love solo trips, obviously. Writing residency, I love walkable adventures. Just
Mm.
I love being able to walk around and see something new. And I value my privacy. So I'm really big until I'm ready for my writing to be shown. I like it to be in the darkness. It feels like very sacred that way to me.
Mm.
So that's a little bit
That
about me.
makes that makes a lot of sense. It's exciting to hear more about your background too. Especially, I'm always curious about artists who create art in multiple mediums. That's such an interesting thing. And I would love to hear more about what your writing is, like what kind of writing specifically do you do, and what inspires your writing?
Yeah. So I'd say first for me, I write primarily fiction.
Okay.
And which consist of novels and short stories. And a little bit of the themes I focus on are around freedom as a feeling, love and soul, not really physical, and see what that looks like and exploring those topics and coming of age stories and physically unconventional circumstances, but emotionally universal as well.
Mm.
So I dabble a lot in that. And for my inspirations, wow, I'd say first my grandparents, because I grew up with Southern grandparents, but I grew up in the city. So I kind of have those Southern city influences in my vocabulary. And that dialect really found its way into my writing, my rhythm, how I write, how I'm able to incorporate, you know, Southern slang and AV kind of mesh together into one. So that's big for me on those dialects, and music and dance, obviously, are very huge influences. I played saxophone and clarinet from elementary, middle, and high school, and I danced 4 years in high school and a little bit after college. So those really are the things I kind of go back into when I'm feeling, I won't say blocked, but I'll just say when I'm feeling kind of like I need a reset.
Mm.
So I'll listen to a whole album sometimes a day,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes two, because I just love, you know, what I'm able to see, where I'm able to go. And then dancing just helps me to just, okay, forget it, whatever, it's over. I'm going to dance today.
Mm.
So that really is a big thing for me. Howard, of course.
Yeah.
And just how I tackle coming of age and Blackness in my stories. That's a big influence on me. And, I'll talk about some books. I read 2 books this year that were really big this year for some stories I wrote this year. First was Their Eyes Are Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I never gotten around to it. So I'm glad I was able to read it older though, because it really taught me how to push my emotional writing and just push it. Like that was a really big book for me. And Things Fall Apart by Chinwag. And he had very simplistic writing in the best way. He just taught me how to pause and how to enjoy narrative and the symbolism and what it means, and not just focus on flowery language all the time, but what are we saying? What is the meaning? So yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of long, but
No, that's good. I love that your inspiration is coming from so many places. I think that that is so lovely and probably lends so much to your writing. And I can't wait to hear you read now. But before we get to that, really quickly,
all day.
I do want to ask about how your writing residency went at Derry Hollow, and how did it affect your writing while you were there?
Whew, man. Well, first, Derry Hollow is gorgeous. It's very quiet. It's the first time in a long time I've heard crickets outside because I'm a city girl. So I was just listening, like, I can't sleep in this silence. I'm used to like fire trucks and police sirens. So it was very, very beautiful. And I think before I got to Derry Hollow, I would sneak silence. So I would sneak around, go to the library, there'll be noise around. I kind of just put on my headphones and, just trying, but now since I've come back, I demand it, a few weeks before I arrived, I had this special place that I was developing between an escape and just having fun. It was like a mantra for me, like before I wrote every time. Let's have fun, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here, let's do that. And it was really hard to do that surrounded by noise and distractions in the city. So since I was surrounded by silence, I was really able to get fully immersed into my work and write exactly what I wanted to say in the moment versus having to go back and rewrite more often. I felt the writing was more emotionally true for me at that time. And, that's because for me, silence is the most important thing we can have as a writer. So to listen to your guts, let the subconscious write for you. It's really nothing like that to me. So now I'm, trying to listen, but first there's needs to be silence. So I just try to take my silence back, and I'm like, shh, don't don't be loud around me. Be quiet. So now I'm just like, this is my writing time. Thinking about getting a sign that says "Do not disturb." That's a big thing for writers, is that silence. And I think something I'll take away, in that same vein, is a higher expectation for my life as a writer. I get, I think all writers get a lot of help and aid from those that care about us and from, organizations that care a lot about the craft, but it just, it gave me a little bit of a taste of what it could be like to live comfortably, independently, in a beautiful location and just write all day and read all day and just explore all the things that go through my mind and emotions daily undisturbed. So it really left me with, oh, I could have this, one day, as a full-time writer, like full-time, having that financial security, like this is what it could look like. Yeah, I just felt honored to be there because, with my family history, I, I wasn't supposed to be a writer, let alone just dare to do that, just writing. So I feel really honored and privileged to do that. So
Oh, well, we're equally honored and privileged to have you. I think Derry Hollow is, to me, also such a magical place, but what makes it so special are the writers, and just like the abundance that is happening there with the writers who are coming and staying. So Thank you for sharing all of that. That was really powerful and really true.
Yeah.
So last but certainly not least, I'm really curious what you're going to be reading for us today.
Wow. Well, first, I know I talked a lot about my inspirations and dance and all of these things, but today I'll be reading a short excerpt from a piece that will be published in a literary journal 2023. I'm excited, entitled The Forgotten Woman. Unfortunately, I will not be reading an excerpt of what I worked on during my time at the Writers Colony.
Okay.
I'm drafting it, the rewriting stage, but I keep it close. It's workshop and things like that. But this short story, The Forgotten Woman, is a short story about a woman, mother, faced with the insecurity of her disabled daughter, who gets into a car accident that reveals far more than a disability unchecked.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and go ahead and get started.
Let's see. Pull it up, make it a little bigger. Okay. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. The red and blue lights were flickering in a dance that late night. Every police officer circled around the person in question with confusion and anger. Confusion because they weren't doctors who could solve this problem, and anger because this person's problem, in which they could not solve, kept them from doing real police work. So they stared at the woman who had a daze in her eyes. "What's my name?" the woman asked again. And this time the police officer stepped further away. Now they were scared. The woman had no ID, no place of connection in this glamorous city. The hotel she walked out of looked like it could have been placed in a Hollywood movie from the 60s. The entryway was where paparazzi would wait back in the day to catch a celebrity when they had just woken up, with that big Hotel of Ocana sign glimmering overhead. The cops couldn't understand it, nor could they solve it, so doctors were on their way at the officer's reluctance. "This goddamn woman can't remember who she is," Officer Clayton said, looking over at the deputy for some guidance. Deputy Chambers looked over at Officer Clayton, then at the tumbled car that the woman dropped out of. At first, they thought she was drunk, and when they couldn't find ID, they got even more frustrated. How dare this woman crash into the side of this hotel drunkenly and not even have the decency to have an ID? Before they could arrest her, though, she asked them what her name was, and they thought it was a joke, a ploy to get out from under Justice's thumb. But no, the woman suddenly passed out for several minutes before they could attempt to answer her ominous question. The young woman sat in silence, her red lipstick smeared and her ear-limp hair curled unevenly to the side. The deputy walked over to her and set a firm grip on the woman's shoulder. When she didn't react, he slid next to her to make her more comfortable. "Miss, are you aware you could have killed someone tonight?" Deputy Chambers said. Her voice was a shaken whisper, like a child who got caught doing something that they knew was wrong. "I didn't mean to kill anybody," she said. "I was just trying to get where?" The deputy leaned in closer as the woman shuffled her hair out of her face. He noticed the slight bald spot in the middle of her head and tried not to stare at it. "I don't know." Tears dropped from the woman's face. Another woman swiftly rushed through the crowd, pushing the officers away when they tried to stop her. "Hey," she yelled, but the deputy kept his focus on the sick woman. "Ma'am, you can't go over there," Officer Clayton said, holding the woman's arm, but she snatched it away. "You don't tell me what to do, officer," Miss Adu said. She took the woman next to the deputy and brought her in close. "Excuse me." "This is my daughter," Miss Adu said. Deputy Chambers looked between the two and thought Miss Adu looked more like the child than the day's woman did. Her bright red shorts and flowery white blouse contrasted with her alleged daughter's outfit, who was flooding in a blue checkered dress that went to her knees, making her both elderly and childlike. "Her name is Charlotte," Miss Adu said. "Lottie for short. What happened? Are you okay, baby?" "Hey, Mama," Charlotte said. "Ma'am," the deputy said, but Miss Adu interrupted him. "Stop calling me ma'am. What happened to my child?" "Well, the deputy began. "There was a car accident. We were told she spun off the road and into the glass by the entrance. The police were going to arrest her." "Arrest her? Can't you see that she's sick?" Well, the EMTs were swamped. She didn't have an ID, anything. He smoothed out his pressed slacks. She can't even remember her name. Miss Adu squeezed Lottie tight before she let her go. Miss Adu looked like a mother once again, a look of worry daring to eat her youth away. The woman had a heart of fire with beautiful brown skin wrapped around it, and only her sickly daughter could get close to breaking it. She just finished brain surgery a few months ago. She was fine. We talked earlier. But this isn't the first time this happened. Miss Adu fixed Charlotte's matted hair. The doctor doesn't know why it happens or if it'll ever stop. Miss Adu stared into his eyes with an innocence, looking away when she saw the deputy stiffening. My husband's at work, Miss Adu said. Surely you can escort us to the hospital, please. Deputy Chambers brought his head down and placed his hat onto his chest. Of course. Chambers rushed the women into the car and stared out of the window as the car moved around the dark dreams of the city. Why would she be coming out here? The deputy asked once they were further away from the scene. He could feel his neck reddening at the thought of what he would have to tell his men at the station, not having the answers he would have liked. He had never dealt with a case like this before. There was never a problem in his city that he couldn't solve. He wondered about his two daughters, and imagined if either of them were to get hurt without remembering themselves. What kind of father would that make him? How could he let that happen to his precious girls? He looked over at Charlotte, so beautiful under the blood and blackness of her eyes. It was a mystery how her injuries had been so minor. Her so-called boyfriend, I suppose, Miss Adu said, looking out of the window. My name is Annabelle, by the way. Annabelle May, if you family. I told her to leave that fool alone, but kids, when they get grown, think they know more than you taught them. I suppose they're right. What parents lack in the latest knowledge is replaced by wisdom. My father used to tell me that, the deputy said. Miss Adu rubbed on Charlotte's locks. You're doing great, Chambers said, feeling the words fall out of his mouth before he could realize how silly that sentiment was. Miss Adu continued to stare out of the string lights filling the city, linking between the lake and the kissing buildings. A place for both recreation and work was the meaning of their small big city. The rest of the neighborhoods didn't very much matter. The neighborhoods that Miss Adu resided, on the outskirts of Volcano. The city thought nothing of them. That was why they put them far away for no one to see. So when they strolled to this nicer part of town, the police couldn't handle it. They couldn't process the pain these outcasts brought with them. There were problems and nothing else. And worse than that, invisible. The emergency room was cold as outside had been. Miss Adu circled the space like a wasp, yelling at every nurse that was in her vicinity. Like we told you before, Miss Adu, the nurse pursed her lips. Dr. O'Henry is gone for the night. I don't want another brain surgeon. I want Dr. O'Henry. He's the only one who understands my daughter's condition. If it's done wrong, she could die. Do you understand? Yes, miss, I do, but there's nothing I can do. Of course there isn't. We will call in the first available brain surgeon, I promise. Miss Adu hadn't told Deputy Chambers the full truth. Her daughter's memory was lapsed, meaning she could remember events up to a point. Which point? Well, Miss Adu wasn't too clear. But she also knew that every time the tube inside of Charlotte stopped moving the excess fluid out of her brain, the tube keeping Charlotte alive, her mind and body got weaker and weaker, and her age accelerated, meaning she could die at any moment. The brain was so advanced that perhaps humans were all too smart for their own good. Why didn't humans understand the thing that created their lives right before their eyes? These were the urgent questions Miss Adu had. Why couldn't they just understand? She had just gotten off her shift when she noticed Charlotte wasn't home. So she had looked all over the city for the girl. She had been gone for over 5 months, but she was supposed to come home tonight. The two were always arguing when Charlotte was coherent, and Annabelle didn't know what to do with her besides protect her. That was what mothers were supposed to do. Do you have any money or not? Charlotte had said one day, needing some for rent. Or did you spend all of it again? First of all, this is my life, and you will respect me in my house, Annabelle said back to the coherent Charlotte. What could you know about life? Huh, Mama? You always think you know, but you don't. If I had a child, you would ruin them too. The words stung Annabelle to this very day. When she was finally able to see another doctor, Miss Adu was furious but quiet, no words forming from the reality that her daughter may not make it this time. This would be Charlotte's third major brain surgery in 5 years, and every time she was left worse and older than the last, like her brain wasn't creating life but taking it away. Miss Sadu wondered how the world looked through Charlotte's eyes, if it was a gray haze, or maybe just black. Charlotte understood her world. She didn't have a mental illness, or autism, nor brain death, but close enough. She wasn't even slow. She could function in society like anyone else. But there was something in her eyes that was off. A carcass, perhaps, or a vessel without a soul. And that is it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I'm gonna do some snaps. I am like on the edge of my seat. That was amazing, Zakiya. Thank you so much for reading for us. And where's it going to be published? Where can we read it?
It is going to be published in Kweli Journal in 2023. I don't have an exact date.
Okay.
So.
We'll be on the lookout. That's because I would love to share once it's out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your December.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. This was really fun.
Yeah.
To read my work.
And hope to see you at the Writers' Colony again sometime.
Right. So beautiful.
Fingers crossed. Right. Bye.
Bye.